I just need to get this off my chest, so I'm going to talk about the X-Men and their involvement in Avengers Doomsday. I'm going to focus on what role they play in the movie, where they actually come from, and how they are kind of a red herring for the actual Avengers in the movie. So, as I'm sure you've all seen by now, Marvel on Wednesday revealed some of the cast of Avengers Doomsday, with some obvious names like Anthony Mackie, Chris Hemsworth, and the Fantastic Four cast being announced as part of the movie. However, there were some surprises, such as Tenoch Huerta as Namor, Lewis Pullman as Sentry, but by far the casting that's got everyone talking is the reveal of a plethora of X-Men cast members. This includes Kelsey Grammer's Beast, last seen in the Marvel's post-credit scene talking with Maria and Monica Rambeau, Alan Cummings, Nightcrawler from X2, Rebecca Romijn's Mystique, the original Mystique, Channing Tatum's Gambit, and of course Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen as Professor X and Magneto. And of course, this has created a ton of hype and speculation as to what role they will play in the movie, and we will discuss this. But I think it's important to first establish where all these characters come from, specifically which universe. Are they from the 10005 universe seen in Deadpool and Wolverine? Or are these the versions referenced in the End of the Marvels by Kelsey Grammer's Beast? Now, take this with a grain of salt, but I believe, and others are also speculating, that they are all one of the same. This being that the universe at the end of the Marvels with Kelsey Grammer's Beast is in fact the 1005 universe from the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, which is also the original timeline that all of the previous Fox X-Men movies take place in. Now, I know you're all probably confused and like, how does this work? Well, let me explain. You see, after the events of Days of Future Past, the Fox X-Men timeline is reset, undoing a ton of deaths, such as Jean and Cyclops. That part of the movie, the future side of things, is set in 2023. Now, we know Logan takes place in 2029 and is 1 year after the Winchester event, which is the first Charles Caesar that kills a ton of X-Men and mutants. This gives us a 5-year window that is mostly unexplored. We do, however, know that Deadpool and Wolverine takes place in 2024, so I do think it's safe to assume that the Marvel's end credit scene is probably set in 2024. This means sometime after Days of Future Past, Maria joins the X-Men, and then Monica shows up a year to 6 months after that. This also explains why it's all the OG actors. And before you all go, well, what about Tatum? Remember, Deadpool and Wolverine ends with Laura being on 1005 thanks to the TVA. And if you remember, Tatum's Gambit didn't know what world he was from. In fact, he makes a joke about being born on the Void. So my guess is that they will probably retcon it so that the TVA also brought Tatum's Gambit to 10005, because there's not another world for him to really go to, and he only knows people from 1005. Now we touched on where the X-Men come from. How do they turn up in Doomsday? Well, it's been heavily rumored for a while now that in Doomsday, 616, the sacred timeline, will have an incursion with that 1005 timeline. This is what will bring the Avengers and the X-Men together and probably culminate in an X-Men versus Avengers fight to save one another's world, just like in Secret Wars, Jonathan Hickman's run. It was the Ultimate Universe versus the 616 timeline in the comics. Now, if you're wondering, well, why would they immediately instigate a fight? Remember, Sam Wilson was already warned of something like this, people from another world coming to take theirs, by the leader. And it is so Magneto to just go, it's us or them, Charles. So I think there is likely probable cause for the fight. And of course, Doom's probably also pulling the strings. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if this whole part of the movie is just a complete red herring for what is going on with Doom, which is probably the main plot, as the movie is called Doomsday. The stuff with Doom, Doctor Strange, Loki, End of Time, that kind of stuff is the main focus of the movie. The Avengers vs. X-Men stuff is probably some sort of red herring to keep the Avengers and X-Men busy by Doctor Doom. And I'm going to make another video, maybe next week, on why or how I think that the X-Men and the Avengers actually fight, and it has something to do with Chris Evans' Captain America, and of course RDJ's Doctor Doom. Now, I know that's a lot to take in, so let me simplify it. I think an incursion happens, the X-Men and the Avengers meet each other, both have prior warnings of other universes, the X-Men through Monica and the Avengers mostly through Ant-Man and Kang, but also the warning from the leader towards Sam Wilson, and that kind of causes them to cause friction, and then Doom manipulates that to cause them to fight each other, maybe through Magneto, maybe through Chris Evans, Captain America, which I do want to do a video on because I think there is something big there that not a lot of people are talking about. But obviously, eventually they'll see eye to eye, probably with the help of the Fantastic Four, who are rumored to have their universe destroyed, and they'll flee to the 616. It's not very clear who will destroy that universe, if it's Galactus, if it's maybe something more to do with Franklin, or if it's Doctor Doom himself. In fact, the working theory right now is that Doom will take Galactus's power of cosmic and use that to kind of be God Emperor Doom. Instead of it being the Beyonder's power, they'll just make it Galactus. But what does this mean for the X-Men's involvement in the future of the MCU, as in past Secret Wars going into the Mutant Saga? Well, I think their key role here in regards to the Mutant Saga is just to introduce the idea of mutants to the vast majority of the MCU, because besides Kamala and Namor, who aren't widely known characters to the vast majority of the MCU, and most people don't even know they're mutants, like Carol Danvers doesn't know Kamala's a mutant, right? The only person that knows one of them is a mutant is Shuri knows that Namor is a type of mutant. But I think the Fox X-Men are that key pivotal player in the sense that they're going to introduce the idea of mutant, so that after Secret Wars, when the reboot happens, which is rumored, that the X-Men basically aren't like a massive shocker to the wide world. The idea of mutants isn't as big of a shock. I think the other key thing is they'll create that negative idea of mutants, because it's hard to convey on screen why the world would be feared of mutants in regards to compared to like the Avengers and the Hulk. Why are we okay with those type of heroes but not the mutants? I think the idea is that if you've got a team of mutants attacking 616 via the multiverse, that's immediately going to cause that negative friction when we do eventually have this rumored reboot and bring in the new mutants, as in the Sadie Sink, Jean Grey, etc. That's going to allow that friction to build in the storytelling going forward. I also just think it's massive fan service, not just for the fans, but also Feige to have the X-Men movie characters that he worked on getting started in the movie realm to interact with the characters that made Feige and Marvel Studios a household name. You know, your Thors, your Chris Hemsworth, in comparison to the Hugh Jackmans, who I do think will show up in Doomsday, even though he wasn't announced. Again, it's only half the cast, but anyway. And Feige gets to play around with these different interactions and make a massive fight scene involving the X-Men and the Avengers, which, let's be realistic, anyone who grew up with those MCU movies and the Fox X-Men movies is going to be happy about this. It's just big money, big excitement, big hype. It's great. But that's everything I wanted to touch on in regards to the Fox X-Men and their role in Doomsday. As I say, I will be making more videos as we get closer to Doomsday, so please do consider subscribing if you want to discuss anything what I've said today or rebuttal me. Feel free to do so in the comments. Just please be respectful. With that being said, peace out, guys.